So on the agenda for tonight, we're going to have a welcome and introductions by me. And the second thing will be a project overview of what we're doing here. And then a project update that will be current up to this morning. And we'll have an overview of the kelp restoration divers specialty training by Mark Shargell, and how to get involved with the project, including incentives and scholarships and great things like that, are going to be presented by Jen Rowe. And at the end of this meeting, we'll have an opportunity for you to ask your questions, and we'll talk a little more about that at the end. So for divers, Monterey is internationally known for pristine kelp forests that tower above us and sway with the waves. Canopy forming giant kelp is the fastest growing marine plant on the planet. And its fronds are food and protection for hundreds of species that live in the kelp forest. But that pristine kelp forest is threatened by a rising tide of urchins. Tonight, you're going to hear from three presenters. My name is Keith Rutzart. I'm project leader for the project and a Reef Check volunteer. And also speaking tonight will be Mark Shargell, a marine life photographer. And our third speaker tonight is Jen Rowe, a dive master with Blue Endeavors. So why do we need to cull sea urchins? Well, what happened was unprecedented events have occurred. There's 3 years of extraordinary heat, marine heat waves have struck the coast of North America, starting in 2014. And you can see from this graph that this is above normal temperatures in this yellow and red range, and blue is where it is below average temperatures. And you can see that above average temperatures came to North America, and you can see it right off the coast here, and it lingered for the better part of 2 years. And the effect of that is that there was this die-off. We witnessed a die-off of 22 species of sea stars, including the large urchin-eating, multi-armed sunflower star. The sea stars succumbed to a sea star wasting disease that caused them to detach their arms and die, and as they turn to goo. You can see here this graph from Reef Check volunteers that in 2013 and 2014, when we started having this marine heat wave, we suddenly lost all of this sunflower star. And it happened in all 4 California regions all at the same time. So you can see even in the southern region where there wasn't that much sunflower stars to begin with, even they lost what sunflower stars they had. So at nearly the same time, purple urchins had a population explosion. You can see that in 2013, these purple urchins were already 3 centimeters, which means that they were in their second year of growth. So these urchins were born in about 2011. But even before the marine heat wave happened, we already had urchins that were being born. So Reef Check data shows that around the Monterey Peninsula and Carmel Bay, that the purple urchin numbers just went up exponentially, right? They were 1 urchin every 25 square meters. And you can see that as it went up, it became over here where you have 10 urchins in 1 square meter. So a huge increase in purple urchins, and it's more than purples, it's also reds. And urchins like to eat kelp. So along with all this urchin population explosion was kelp loss. And you can see in this map here from Josh Smith that at Lover's Point in 2018, there was an abundance of kelp in this cove. This is Lover's Point here, it's to the west of that. And then in 2019, that kelp is just about gone, just a little bit remains. This is taken at the same time of the year. And then in 2018, you can see at Cannery Row, all of this kelp out here at Cannery Row. And then in 2019, you can see that it's just about gone. So when urchins live in a barren, they eat all the kelp and other brown algae, and then they eat the red algae, and then they eat the pink encrusting algae until they are down to bare rock. But they can stay alive by living off the nutrients in their gonad. Urchins are related to starfish and have 5-part radial symmetry. Here you can see what a healthy urchin looks like and what an unhealthy urchin looks like on the inside. The game changer is that a starving urchin can live in this state for years. You're not going to deprive them of their food source. They will continue to live. There are 2 canopy-forming kelp species in Monterey. We have bull kelp and giant kelp here. Giant kelp is a perennial and can live for 7 or 8 years. And when the urchins eat the holdfast of the kelp here at the bottom, then the entire kelp plant ends up on the shore, drifts away. In 2019, I led an experiment with Reef Check volunteers, a 3-year experiment at the Lovers 3 urchin experiment out in this area. The idea of the experiment was to see if we reduced the urchin density to low numbers, would kelp survive and recruit naturally, and return to a barren. And so that's what we did for a couple years there. It's in this 3rd year of the experiment right now. So in 2001, we initiated a petition, and we had a lot of support from the diving community. It was just, it was amazing. They told us no 3 times, and we just kept coming with, we had divers write letters and speak at the commission meetings. And in 2020, the public pressure campaign seemed to work, and we got permission to do this project at Tankers Reef. And that law, that rule to the regulation change, the amendment to the sport fishing rules, became legal in April of 2001. So this is the project area for the Tankers Reef. Many of you may not be familiar with this area. It's not frequented very often by divers. Mostly people go to the Shale Island dive site, maybe what people are more familiar with. This area is a shale reef in this area right here. And we're used to diving mostly in Monterey on granite substrates, and the granite reefs are further around the peninsula. So this presents a unique place. You can also see in this one that this is the boundary of the Department of Fish and Wildlife. The declared fishing boundary is this red line right here. A lot of it's too deep for us to be working, but the boundary starts over here by the wharf, and there's a mooring field where there's boats out here, and it goes from there 1.6 miles down the coast to the seawall at the Tides Motel. And that defines the legal boundary of where you're allowed to cull urchins in Monterey. Also, we looked at historically, where does kelp form? And this is a combined drawing of historically where kelp forests is formed. And on this area, we have placed a cable grid. So the cable grid was created by Reef Check California, and it's an underwater cable grid, and Mark can talk more about how we're using that grid. This is where it's located, and where the access is from parking near the site for us to get to it. So what are the goals of the project? Well, number 1 goal is to do this safely. There's no reason why anyone should get hurt doing this. We want everyone to do this safely. And we need to train divers to cull urchins properly without harming other marine life. We don't want any bycatch in this. Oops, sorry, hit the wheel. And another project goal is to reduce the purple and red urchin density below 2 per square meter. That's the level when we think that an urchin barren can become a kelp forest again. And the Department of Fish and Wildlife in Reef Check, California will monitor our work to see how well we are meeting those goals. Well, other project benefits are we're going to establish a giant kelp forest at Tankers Reef. And that kelp forest will provide a giant kelp spore bank for future kelp forest recovery in this area. And we're going to monitor changes in the kelp forest community and provide a habitat for southern sea otters. They're a threatened species, and they're on our site, and we want to be able to provide a better habitat for them. So this is our effort to date. So far, we've culled about an estimated 112,000 urchins on the site. This scatter plot shows the distribution. Each star represents a dive. About 181 dives so far. Sometimes they're one on top of the other, so you can't see that there's two there, but gives you you can kind of see weekends here, and this is some of the areas that have a lot of urchins on them. You can go really quickly, and that's why they see, like on the scatter plot, like some numbers in this 500 range, and then there's some that are in the 1500 range, and that comes with the territory of where the urchins are. And you can see also there is this, if you add up all the urchin take over time, this is the plot of our data collection, and to get to that number. And you can see, like this, if you look at the curve of that, as more divers come online, the number of urchins taken is accelerating over time. And this is the progress of the site to date. So when we go and work on this grid, and Mark will tell you more about the grid, we report back data of where we did the culling and removal. And so each of these stripes represents a dive and where that diver went, and we know how long they spent down there doing that work, and that's accumulated. So on this grid, the first 2 lanes we turned over to Reef Check, turned back to them to count, and we did really well on those. We were down to 0.8 or so. And then in these other regions, we have turned them over now. These 4 lanes, and they had low numbers on them as well. One of the lanes we have to come back and do, but they were really good, very low numbers on it. And so 60% of the grid is below our threshold density of 2 per square meter. And what we've done is we went outside of the grid. You know, we went to the south of it, and we culled around here so that the urchins won't migrate on to our newly culled areas. And this, basically what's happening here is there's a kelp forest that is just north of our grid, and there's urchins on the southern side of that grid. And there's some other kelp patches further out. And but these kelp patches have recently disappeared. But this kelp forest, we're trying to protect that kelp forest by going around the perimeter and culling the urchins that are on the kelp holdfasts in this area. And the only reason why this kelp forest exists and is not already eaten by urchins is because there's sand all around this kelp forest, and urchins don't like to cross the sand. So that's what we're trying to do here, is to patrol the perimeter and keep that kelp alive, because if we can clear off the grid, then this kelp, the spores from this kelp forest will come and reseed our kelp forest. So that is that's the progress. We also have some otters that are on our site. Every time we go out there, there's usually 4 or 5 otters out in this location, including a mother and a pup that are on this place. So next up is Mark Shargell. The first entries in Mark's dive log are 43 years old. In those decades of local diving, he's been seeing changes that science has traced to human activities like fishing and global warming. But the disappearance of giant kelp is by far the most alarming thing he's witnessed. From 97 to 2007, he was a vocal advocate for marine reserves, and he sat on the state marine panel for the Central California Marine Protected Areas. And after that, he wrote 4 books on California's marine life. This year, he worked on the instructional design for the new kelp forest restoration diver specialty classes. Without further ado, here's Mr. Mark Shargell.
Oh, Keith, thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone who can hear me for the time they're spending with us this evening. And I want to talk about the time that I hope you will be spending in the days to come, taking hands-on direct action to protect the kelp at Tankers Reef and to demonstrate to the California Fish and Game Commission that we can do the same thing on the granite reefs around the Monterey and Pacific Grove shorelines. Let's start with the first slide, Keith. Thank you so much. So this is about the Kelp Forest Restoration Specialty class. We hope that everyone who volunteers for the Tankers Reef project will take that training. And if you remember nothing else from what I say this evening, remember to go to G2KRlink.com and find the list of instructors who can offer you that class. With the next slide, I'll start a preview of what you will learn in the class. The first thing is how it relates to preserving giant kelp forests. You'll learn about sea urchin anatomy and behavior. Keith has given you a great introduction to that already. You'll learn to identify the 2 species of urchins that have been native in our area for a long time and have completely broken out of their traditional ecological niche to cause the problems we're seeing now. You'll learn the steps to conduct an urchin culling dive. You'll learn technique for culling urchins in a way that effectively eliminates the urchin without damaging anything else. You'll learn how to dive on the project site and to use the extensive underwater markers that the Reef Check team has laid down for us. You'll learn how to collect and report data. Remember, this is a project that's being done in collaboration with the State Department of Fish and Wildlife, and we're being monitored by multiple governmental agencies. So they love data. They love to be able to quantify the results. And so we're giving them that in great detail. You'll learn how to recognize invasive species and watch for those, make sure that we don't disturb the otters, and above all, dive safely and have a good time. So next slide, please. And we'll talk about the prerequisites for getting into the Kelp Forest Restoration Specialty class. This is for divers who are previously open water certified, are comfortable diving in Monterey, have about 20 dives experience, so they're used to the thermal protection equipment and everything you need to dive in our local area. Neutral buoyancy skill becomes pretty important. We'll show you why in a moment. And you have to be able to get into and out of the water, whether you're going by beach or boat. And next one. Again, those underwater markers are pretty extensive, but minimal use of compass is going to be important. You need to know whether you're going north or south, let's put it that way. And the cool thing is that if any of these skills you haven't mastered yet or don't feel comfortable with, the instructors who teach the specialty class can help you brush up on any and all of these. All right, let's go on. You do need a few special tools. So things illustrated here are probably pretty familiar to the divers in the audience, with perhaps 1 or 2 exceptions. The main one being that black hammer on the left side. And I guess we're going to talk about that in a minute. The thing that's not listed or shown here is your California Department of Fish and Wildlife sport fishing license. Let's push the button for the next image. It's going to set you back a little bit over $50, and you can get to the DFW website via G2KRlink.com. I'll keep saying that. If you type /license after that, I'll take you directly there. So that hammer that we've tested and found that particular hammer design seems to work the best. Very little water resistance as you swing it, nice shock absorber handle, and it doesn't weigh much. As cheap as $6, maybe as much as 15. Several places to buy it at, oh, you know where, g2krlink.com/hammer. Push the button, please. Okay. You'll also want the other things illustrated here, something to cut any fishing line, a way to collect garbage. We have found some trash on the site, a surface marker buoy. There is boat traffic in the area, so if you come up away from one of the permanent mooring markers, rather, a surface marker buoy is a good thing. Okay, let's go on. Oh, and slate to mark the data that you're going to log after the dive is over. And of course, you have to clip all of this close to your body so it doesn't drag on the reef. So the culprit, sea urchins. Keith has already explained the radial symmetry, the yellow gonads, which allow them to reproduce. And if they're not reproducing and are food starved, they can live off of that for years. It's amazing. Yeah, that's uni if you're into sushi. And sea otters eat the urchins for that uni, or the gonad that's inside. The starving urchins that have no gonad, the otters don't bother with. So unfortunately, they're not controlling the urchin barons, which is why we have to go do it. Okay, let's go on. So to cull the urchin, in case there is some viable gonad in there, we want you to break each of the 5 sections, do some damage to each of the 5 sections of the urchin. You see here an urchin that has been culled properly. All 5 of the sections have been damaged. We are confident that this urchin can't reproduce. And you can do this to a small urchin with a tab or 2, a bigger one with multiple small strokes. We want to tap the urchin so that the hammer stops inside the urchin rather than going all the way through. It takes a little practice, but it can be mastered within, I don't know, a couple dozen urchins. Let's go on. Or not. There we go. Okay. So after culling, the urchins become attractive food for fish that we're hoping to bring back into the kelp forest ecosystem. And we'll be watching to see that. So your technique relies on that neutral buoyancy skill that I mentioned earlier. Here's a diver doing it just the way we want to see it. The only parts of this diver's body or equipment in contact with the substrate are the hands and the hammer. And of course, she can see where her hand is landing, so she can put it down on a bare patch or even use it to stabilize the urchin while tapping with the other hand. Nothing else touches the bottom. Nicely done there, diver. Okay, so the flip side, what's wrong with this picture? Those of you who are familiar with local marine life see a bunch of purple urchins sitting on top of tube worms, and that's not the hammer we recommend. That's a great big old thing, and this diver is going to come down on that purple urchin, crush it and probably several tube worms underneath it. That's what we do not want to do. So these urchins should be moved onto bare rock or sand before they are culled. And if that can't be accomplished without doing other stuff, we'll just swim by, leave them for the next diver, because urchins generally move. So if they're not in a place where you can cull them today, tomorrow, or next week, they probably will be. Let's continue. Okay, so the project site, you see the red rectangle at the top right? That's the project area. We call it the cable grid. We'll show you why in a moment, how it's been mapped out. Shore access to that is by parking on Park Avenue, marked by the P in the illustration. There is limited parking there, but it's free and you can park all day on the weekends. On weekdays, you can only park for 2 hours. Might not be long enough for a dive, so you might want to get there by a different method on the weekdays, which we will introduce you to right after I'm done talking. So here's the beach access. It's a pretty good hike in your dive gear, so if you're in shape, you're going to enjoy that and go for it. Otherwise, there is easy and fast boat access on the next slide. Which is coming. So our project area is just east of the Monterey Harbor. There's a bigger view of Monterey, so you're familiar with the harbor. The orange line begins at the breakwater, where I'm sure you've been diving. On the outside of the breakwater, you shore dive. On the inside of the breakwater, private boats launch. It's a quick run to Tankers Reef. Or by the blue line, if you get on any of the commercial dive boats, including Beach Hopper 2, you'll get there very quickly. And if you want to do it by kayak, there's an easy launch and I think even available parking at Monterey Bay Kayaks, and you can paddle out there pretty quickly. Notice that all of these arrows approach from the north, because on the south side is where the divers will be, and we're doing our best to keep the boats on the north side and the divers on the south side. Okay, at the north end of that cable grid is a white buoy. That's the mooring buoy, and it's the only mooring buoy. So if you happen to own a boat or a kayak, please tie it up to the white buoy, and we invite you to do that. That thing is not going anywhere. If you tie up to any other buoy, you might drag it, you might make a mess. Please don't. All right, and note that we, as you know from being in the area, wind frequently comes up in the afternoon. Okay, onward. So here's this cable grid we were talking about. This is why we call it the area. So that red rectangle you saw is 100 meters on a side. And the reef check team, led by Dan Abbott and guided by Keith, who designed this, have done what I think is absolutely heroic work. They put lines down on the perimeter, and then they put lines inside the grid every 10 meters. And then between the line, so those 10-meter lines form 10 lanes, we call them. And down the middle of each lane is a meter tape so that you know exactly where you are. So there's 5 meters worth of lane on one side of the meter tape and 5 meters worth of lane on the other side. You and a buddy can do half a lane going in one direction and cover that. 2 people can cover that pretty well, and cull as you go. So you might be able to do the entire 100-meter stripe, 5 meters wide, maybe not, maybe more than, and that's what you report after your dive. The more or less square cable grid, 100 meters by 100 meters, is marked out by 4 yellow buoys. You see the white mooring ball at the north edge, which is where the only place where you tie your boat up. And there is also a gray buoy and an orange buoy on the site. Keith mentioned that we've got about 60% of the grid down to our yardstick of success, 1 to 2 urchins per square meter, which is terrific so far. And we haven't really hit high gear on the project yet. So we are hoping that the orange and gray buoys will allow us to direct effort beyond the cable grid. The orange buoy is for everyone who's taken the kelp forest restoration class, who doesn't work on the grid. And the gray buoy is for non-trained divers. Remember, Keith told you that the legal basis for this project is a change in the sport fishing regulations. So that explains, one, why you have to have that fishing license, because even though you're doing ecological restoration and protection, the state calls it sport fishing, as you're taking urchins. And technically, anybody who can get to the area is legally entitled to cull urchins, because there's so much data relying on doing this, and because we're interested in protecting and restoring biodiversity rather than having incidental damage. We really do ask for everybody to get trained first, please, but you are legally entitled to go out and dive and cull urchins. So that's what the gray buoy is for. So as we mentioned, there's a whole lot of data being gathered because there's a lot of people who want to know how we're progressing, how well we are succeeding. So you'll record the time you spend culling urchins, and by the way, that's not your total time underwater, that's time at work. Where you were, so which lane and which side of the lane. Yeah, east or west of the meter tape in the lane. And where, because that meter tape tells you exactly where you are, you can record your stop and start point very accurately. And then a few other things that we're asking you to watch out for, things like invasive species, which you will learn to recognize in the class. Encounters with marine mammals, we're talking mostly about otters there. And if you accidentally damage something, look, nobody's looking over your shoulder to sight anybody for anything. We just want to know how well it works. So, if something goes sideways, please let us know. If you pull up one of the lines that forms the grid, again, nothing punitive is going to happen. We just know to get out there and repair it and where to repair it. And if you pick up interesting trash, let us know. And you'll have a BC pocket or a little bag for that. And anything else interesting that happens on the dive. So that's a pretty good overview of the class. And that allows me to introduce Jen Rowe to you. Jen is a dive master. She's affiliated with the Ocean Conservation nonprofit Blue Endeavors, an organization that I learned about by talking to Jen, and I absolutely love them. She is also a newly certified reef check diver and a member of the NorCal chapter of Sea Shepherd. From working with Jen, I have learned that she knows a great deal about marketing, as you will find out from what she's about to present. She contributed a lot to designing what she's going to talk about. And also she contributed to the G2KR project by leading the project that created our spiffy logo with the sea otter and urchins on it. So thank you, Jen. And without further ado, here comes Jen Rowe to tell you about our premium programs.
Thank you so much, Mark. Well, good evening, everyone. Keith, may we have the next slide, please? So in this section, we'll be going over getting involved, the reward program, scholarships, our new dates for our August meetup, raffle, and we'll give a shout out to our sponsors and talk about how you can donate to the project. Next slide, please. All right, so to get involved, the first step, as many of you have already done, is to register to dive at g2krlink.com/register. Once you've received your registration number, you can get in contact with a PADI or NAUI instructor, and we'll be providing a list of instructors in just a moment. After you've been trained, you'll request a culling assignment for your buddy team using g2krlink.com/getalane. And then after your dive, you and your buddy will log your data at g2krlink.com/data. At the end in the comments, if you like, you can enter your buddy's name, so it's easier for us to track who has been diving with who. Next slide, please. All right, so we are super pleased to see that we have 275 registered divers and counting. And we already have 60 urchinators who have gone out and called on the grid. Bravo, everyone. Okay, next slide, please. So here you can take a look at the affiliation of all the registered divers. So you will see your club or your shop on this screen. Okay, and then here's the list of the instructors who are providing the Kelp Restoration Diver Specialty class. And this can be accessed at g2krlink.com/instructors. And we'll be adding all of these links in the chat at the end of the presentation. All right, so we are very excited to announce our new rewards program for our divers. We've launched the Golden Hammer program. And this is a great way for us to reward all these amazing urchinators who have been going out there on the grid. We have 3 tiers of rewards for urchinators who've logged their dives from April through the end of the year. So with the first tier, if you've logged 6 dives, you get a G2KR t-shirt. Keith is wearing one now, and there's also a shot of it on the screen. Yeah, woohoo! If you've logged 10 dives, you'll get 1 tanker's reservation for the beach hopper, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And you've logged 20 dives or more, you'll get 2 tankers reservations on the beach hopper. So we've got a couple of urchinators who have already hit some of these tiers. So for the 6 log dive or more tier, we already have 2 divers. So congratulations to Jen Romero and to Michael Tocolino. They have already hit 7 dives. So they will be receiving a t-shirt. We'll get in touch with them. Woohoo, congratulations. All right, and then now looking at, okay, we have another urchinator who has actually hit more than 20, who's hit 30 dives already. This urchinator is Stephen Ames. Congratulations, Stephen. Woo! Go, Stephen. Okay, so we'll be reaching out to Stephen to get him his reservations for the Tankers Beach Hopper trip. And just to note that your club affiliation counts toward club level rewards, and we'll have an award announcement for the top club at the end of the year. Oh, and for the t-shirts, you can get them. If you like to buy a t-shirt, you can buy them at Aquarius and Bamboo Reef for $25, and $20 will go back into the project. Okay, let's continue. All right, so we're really stoked to announce August meetup days for trained divers. So far we have these 2 dates on the calendar. Please mark your calendars for Sunday, August 1st and Sunday, August 22nd. So this is a fantastic way for you to meet other urchinators. And if you've come solo, then you can find a dive buddy. So we'll be meeting at the end of Park Avenue and gearing up there and doing 2 shore dives. So for, next slide, please. For any of you who prefer to do a boat dive instead of a shore dive, we are so lucky that Captain Mary Jo Nelson has graciously offered to support the Tankers Reef project. So she will be running beach hopper trips to Tankers Reef every Thursday. And she'll be taking trained divers and students in training for a 2-tank dive. So tentatively, we are looking at this starting in August, and we'll be announcing the dates shortly. So the cost will be minimal, about $25 to $30 for the trip. And this is really just enough to cover the cost of her costs and the cost of the crew for the day. All right. So for spreading the word, we absolutely love it when urchinators share their dive reports on Facebook. So this is an example of what Sabrina Wong and Sean McIntyre posted over July 4th. So we encourage you to post your tankers reports on the Monterey Facebook pages and on the G2KR Facebook page. And also make sure that you're subscribed to our newsletter. You can sign up at g2kr.com /how-to-help. Next slide, please. All right, the most exciting part of the evening. Tonight, we'll be announcing winners for our 2 raffle prizes. Okay, so we have 2 prizes tonight. The first prize will be a t-shirt for 1 person who has registered to dive. And the second prize will be for an urchinator who has logged their dive. They will receive a tanker's trip on the beach hopper. So in order to make this go smoothly, we use a random number generator to generate a number that corresponds with the registered divers and with the actual log entries. So let's see here. What we generated for the first prize of the t-shirt, we generated number 158, which corresponds with David Daly from Lathrop. Congratulations, David.
Hey, David.
Yay, woohoo. So he'll be getting a t-shirt. We'll be reaching out to David. And for the urchinator who logged their dive, we generated number 87. So this corresponds with dive log number 87, Crystal Lay from Palo Alto. Congratulations, Crystal. Woo.
Hey, Crystal.
So we'll be reaching out to her to get her her beach hopper tanker strip. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, I'd like to take a moment to thank all our collaborators and allies of the Tankers Reef Project. Next, please. And we'd like to express our gratitude to our sponsors who have so graciously supported our project. We've received major funding from Sustainable Surf and Louise Woolley. We've also received funding from Get Inspired, who is our fiscal sponsor, and we've received contributions via GoFundMe, Venmo, and Facebook fundraisers. If you'd like to donate to the project, here's the link that you can use. We'll be pasting that in the chat at the end of the presentation. And your contribution will help cover costs of equipment and scholarships.
There you go.
All right. And this is how you can stay involved or informed on project status and results. Please check out our website, G2KR.com. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/urchinkelpotters. Subscribe to our newsletter, and you can also view the real-time data submission of all the dive logs, which Keith presented earlier. So for anyone who hasn't registered, here's the link to register tonight. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. So this concludes our presentation, and we will be opening up the presentation to questions. To ask a question, please use the let's see here. Oh, we don't have the raise our hand functions, do we? We'll be using a chat function. And
they can access the raise your hand function under reactions on the
Okay.
bottom menu. There should be an
Okay,
option to
perfect.
raise your hand.
Okay, so then you can raise your hand or you can enter your question into the chat.
So it looks like Sean and Terry have both raised their hands. Sean, why don't you go first, and Terry, you can go next.
Okay, I've got two questions. First, we use our boat to get out to the area, to the grid, and so if there's another boat already tied up at the white buoy, what is the recommendation?
Well, the first thing I would say is don't tie your boat to another boat. Right.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So you can both tie up to that same buoy and just put fenders between boats if that works. That's really the only option I have. Or if you want to anchor your boat, you can do it, please, not on the grid, because we're really worried that if someone drops an anchor, they could tear up the grid when they pull up their anchor. So
well, that's the thing I'm worried about dropping anchor, anywhere near the grid,
Right.
So if we get some drift. So,
Yeah.
well, if we need to drop anchor, then we'll just, stay 20 or 30 feet north of the buoy or something.
Right.
Okay. Question 2. Okay. And David actually asked that. We were talking about the t-shirts a minute ago. So we go out, we anchor, we do a dive, come back up, take a little break, switch tanks out, do another one. Does that count as 2 dives, or is it in the same day, same grid assignment?
It is 2 dives. That would be 2 dives. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, that, was it one trip out there on a grid assignment or,
Yeah. Like what happens a lot is I'll do one and I'll get so far on the grid, and then I'll make a note of what meter mark I was at when I stopped. And then the next time I'll go and begin at that one, but that would count as 2 dives.
Yeah. Well, that's actually what we did. So
yeah.
Cool.
I know you did that. I saw your data. Good job.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We hope to get out there and do some more culling soon. And we're just going to go do a fun dive this weekend, but in a couple of weeks, we're going to go out and urchinate.
Hey, this is fun too.
Yeah, well, it is. It doesn't give us much opportunity for photography. Anyway, thank you much. And we'll let you go on to the next one.
Actually, Sean's first question about 2 boats on the buoy was what my question was going to be. So move on to the next.
Come on.
I'm going to say, if you have a decently large lift bag, you can actually put your anchor on the lift bag and very carefully lower it down, you know, under direct observation of a diver if there's not too much wind at the time you're going down. Some of the boats in Hawaii do that when they're diving off of the buoys to try and make sure they don't put an anchor up right in a coral head.
All right.
Thanks, Randall.
Thank you. It looks like we have some questions in the chat. The first one is from Louise, and she's asking how the tapes marking the lanes are holding up against the hungry urchins.
Yeah.
Melanie.
I lost 6 of them. I lost 6 of them to urchins so far, you know. So what happened was the tape measures start at 0 and they go up to 100. But on the southern end of it, where they get to 100, that's where there's the majority of urchins. There are hundreds of urchins out there, and they're eating the tape measures, and we lose them. You know, we have to replace them. So a couple of solutions. One is replace the tapes more often, and the better one is go get rid of all the urchins, right? The other thing we found too, like they were even not just the tape measures, but even the lines we have between the lanes. We put down this little cave line, and the urchins ate that because it started growing brown algae on the cave line, and then they ate it, broke it up. So we've replaced all the cave lines with very visible polypropylene lines that are a little floaty, but it's very easy to see the lanes now with that other line, and the urchins are not eating it. So I think we've solved that problem, but we'll just keep working on it.
And this gives us an opportunity to thank our contributors who have paid for those replacement meter tapes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. The next question, I believe, is from Barbara asking about, we've presented 2 different types of links, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark and Keith, but I think they both lead to the same website. They just look a little bit differently, but they should both go to the G2KR website. So just to clarify any questions on that.
2 different addresses. There's G2KR.com, which is the project website where you'll get most of your information and where you'll be able to sign up for the newsletter. We also have G2KRlink.com, which gives you links to almost everything you need to get your hands on and to know to do the diving. So from G2KRlink.com, you can find the instructor list. You can find out where to buy the recommended hammer. You have a link to getting your lane assignment, a link to reporting your data after the dive, and a bunch of other things I can't remember off the top of my head. Barbara suggests that we cross-link those 2 sites, which is a great idea. Why didn't I think of that before?
Well, they kind of are.
Barbara. We'll
do
it.
Yeah.
This is the first I've heard of the link.com website, and that did have some of the information that you know, some people I know we were looking for, and so it would be, I think, very helpful, to be able to get there from the main site, because the main site, a couple times we've gone there and it seems like either there aren't more updates or we're not finding what we're looking for. Right. So the link.com has a lot of useful information.
Yeah, a lot of our software is free software from Google. It's Google Forms, and so when you do that kind of thing, you get a real long link, and I don't want to give everybody these cryptic links. So the G2KRlink.com site just has like easier to remember names kind of thing.
Well, right, but if on the G2KR.com site, just have one link that says, hey, you know, more specific information available here, and it can take you to the G2KRlink.com website. And again, like I said, I was just looking at it going, ooh, hey, yeah, that's what I was looking for.
There you go. Perfect. We'll make that change. Thanks, Barbara.
Great.
And our next question was from Jocelyn, and she was asking if we are looking for more instructors and what that process looks like.
We're always looking for more instructors. Instructors are the force multiplier. And we are setting up another PADI course for PADI instructors. So if you're a PADI instructor, just send me an email, keith@g2kr.com, and I'll set you up when we have that class. There's some other course director, Brian Nelson, taught the first group. And we're thinking we'll have another course director as well. And there's also a NAUI course director and training director at Bamboo Reef, Nick Lachey, that is teaching NAUI people. So If you're an instructor in either one of those certifying institutions, give me a call and we'll get you set up. It's easy to get involved with it. You know, we do a lot of connection with the instructors and updates, and the coursework is free to instructors. There's no fee for the class and for their instruction to become instructors.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I see that again, the link.com website where it lists all the instructors, it does note that each instructor or the shops they work at set their own fee. So if you contact different people, you may get different numbers. And that's something that I've had a number of people, when I'm with the San Jose Flipper Dippers, we've been trying to organize a group of people to take the class. And I know that the cost was a concern for some people.
Yes.
So that is good to know that it may vary.
Right, there is some variation in the costs in terms of what the instructors charge their students. That's really none of our business into a large degree. I mean, they may provide a service that's better or whatever. And you know, I'm not in the instruction business. I can't train 275 divers, obviously. So we leave it to the instructors and market forces to work that out. So we hope you find something that's within your budget, and that the diver training we think is of great value, and I think it's something that you're really going to enjoy to learn.
Yeah, Barbara makes another really good point, and the course fees that you'll find by checking with various of the instructors on that list, you'll find vary tremendously. So if you are cost sensitive and concerned about that, rather than say convenience, or if you know an instructor or something like that, you might do well by doing price shopping by checking with several instructors.
That said, there are openings for the class at Aquarius Dive Shop for this Friday.
All right, and I think our last question so far is from Michael, asking if we're trending towards reaching the study's density goal in all the lanes, and what happens to culling when within the grid when that occurs.
What happens to culling on the grid when that?
Yeah, if you reach the density goal in that lane, what happens?
Yep.
Well, that's our goal, is to reduce it down to that number, right? And so the grid is going to remain. We're going to keep it there, and that's where people can learn to do instruction. It's the easiest way to be able to train people, because it's a defined area. And so we'll continue to use that even when the numbers decrease quite a bit. We're 60% done. 60% of the lanes are pretty low, and we still have 3 more to go. But then we'll expand off the grid. There's actually the entire treatment area has about 75 acres of habitable urchin area. Probably 30% of that has urchins on it. And so we'll just keep on pushing out from the grid. The strategy is basically to be persistent and large and have the grid and just push out from the grid in all directions and keep those urchins from coming back onto the site, and let the kelp forest grow by having more area for it to go on. So we're certainly not gonna end at the grid. We'll continue to go on for this. This is a 3-year project as written in the regulations. So we'll be doing it for at least that long, hopefully, and moving on to other areas as we get more permission.
So let me add to that, Keith. You didn't advertise your own brainchild, man.
No.
So what you will learn in the kelp forest restoration specialty class is how to navigate on that grid when the entire grid reaches 100%, and we've got it down to 1 urchin per square meter or something along those lines. Keith has already organized an orange buoy and a gray buoy. And again, the orange buoy will be where those of you who've taken the class will go off the grid. We'll be placing that orange buoy at a place where we want some urchin culling effort. And this will that'll be off the grid. And the navigational technique for that is slightly different, but again, you'll be oriented to that in the class. And then once we've covered the area that the orange buoy leads people to, we'll move the orange buoy to another area and create some more area for kelp to regrow. Same will be true of the gray buoy.
Great, thanks, Mark and Keith. So
I-
far, I think that is our last question. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, if I can just ask a question, this is Barbara again, and this may be beyond what you guys are doing. I know there have been posts on scubaboard.com and other websites like that, Facebook, where people talk about how, I guess, some of the fish and game rules have changed, and even if you're not in this particular research area, you can still cull, you take a certain amount of urchins. I guess the idea there is to actually like put them in a game bag and take them with you. Subject to marine preserve rules and things, and I didn't know if you guys had any opinion on that. I know there's the ongoing question about, oh my God, if I smash them, or am I actually releasing the eggs and sperm? And sorry to bring this up,
Right.
That kind of thing. But I was just wondering if you guys had any input or guidance on people that might want to expand their urchin culling or smashing efforts outside of the study site.
Well, it's to take of urchins, the way the rules are written is that you're allowed to take 35 urchins per diver per day, but you cannot do that inside a marine protected area, only in areas that are outside of a marine protected area. So that's the normal limitation. With a fishing license, that would what you would be able to take. Now, we have asked for an amendment, an exception to that, and that's what we have here. So in the Tankers Reef treatment site, you can take an unlimited number of purple and red urchins with hand tools in the project. And also another place that you can do this is in Caspar Cove in Mendocino County. You can go there and cull urchins with hand tools. They're only purple urchins, but that's the other place where recreational divers can go. In Sonoma and Mendocino counties, they have a different rule there, a different exception, and their exception is that you can take 40 gallons, probably crushed urchins or uncrushed urchins. There's no real stipulation for that, but anywhere in those counties. And for that, you cannot cull them, you have to remove them. So that means putting them in a bag and taking them with you when you cull it in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. So that's the rules for urchins right now. And we really want everybody to be patient, right? We will get there. And what we don't want is we're trying to earn trust with the Fish and Game Commission and with the Department of Wildlife by playing by the rules and giving them meaningful data of what we're doing out here. So we really want people to, don't become the vigilante horde that they all fear that we could become. So, be patient, and we will get there. And just only cull urchins inside the treatment area. And the best way to do it is as we recommend it. I think what you'll find is that if you just drop in somewhere and say, I'm going to cull a bunch of urchins here, it's overwhelming. There's just so many urchins, and you're just picking at a little part of it and the random part. And it needs to be organized. It needs to be a bunch of people working all together in order for it to be meaningful. Otherwise, you're just actually being kind of cruel, to the animals, because you're not going to do anything significant. My 2 cents.
Any other questions? Anything? Comments? All right.
Good one. Well, thank you everybody for the coming to the meeting. We're at 7 o'clock right now. Thank you for your questions, and we'll do this again. We'll have more updates, and we'll let you know how when these are happening. Come to our meetup days. That's a good opportunity to come and join and meet buddies and do it together, and take a class, get good at this, come out and do it. It's fun. It's really rewarding when you've been watching this ecosystem get destroyed, and you look to your left and your buddy's culling urchins, and the 2 people next to them are culling urchins, and it's getting done. We're getting work done out there, and it's very rewarding. And I hope you'll join us and keep culling safely. That said, let's adjourn the meeting.
Thanks for spending your evening with
Thank
us,
you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank
Much
you so much,
appreciated.
everyone.